activist all of my adult life, but one of the proudest involvements I ever had was with an organisation called the Women's Support Network that I was a co-founder of. And that was founded in the late 80s in Belfast at a time long before the Good Friday Agreement and where things were still pretty rough. And it was a network of women who came from working class, community-based groups throughout the whole greater Belfast area. They were women who came from the ghettos, women who came from the loyalist and Republican heartlands, and who came together in one organisation. And it had always been said that it couldn't be done, that loyalists and Republicans who were so completely divided could come together in any kind of an organisation, and we did it as women. And we did it not by sinking our differences, because that's what was always being done. When people talked about peace, it was about sinking your differences and pretending that you didn't have any. We didn't talk about peace. We talked about democracy, we talked about justice, we talked about equality. Because for us, that's what peace was about. It wasn't just an end to violence, it was about a complete change in power and how we used power and who had power. Because so much of what we see as democracy is about the exchange of power from one power block to another block. And we want to see a complete change in how power was used and who had it. Anyway, one of the things that happened to us, we were all non-compliant women. Well, one of the things that happened to us that gave us hope was the election of Mary Robinson down here. And we thought she was the bomb. Sorry, northern humour. But we really, really, really wanted to meet Mary Robinson. We thought she was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And that was everybody. That was the Catholic woman and the Protestant woman. And so we wrote to her. And we asked her, would she like to come on a visit to the north? Now, no Irish president had ever come north. Certainly not in the last 30 years. And we didn't really think it was going to happen, but we thought we'd be courteous and make the request and send the invitation. Anyway, we got a letter back from Mary Robinson asking a few of us to come down and meet with her in the Irish. So we did. She met us, she seen the measure of us, we got the measure of her. And she said, she'd love to come north. And really that's when it all started, and really that's when the trouble started. Because there were a couple of problems with that. One was that Haughey was in power here, and he wasn't Mary's biggest fan, as some of you will remember. She had beaten his man to the presidency, and the idea that Mary Robinson would cross the border and come north when he couldn't do it, and he saw himself as the main kind of symbol and icon of republicanism, he sure as hell wasn't going to let Mary come north and steal his thunder. On our side of the border, we had a few problems. They all began with initials: UDA, UVF, IRA, IRSP. But the biggest one of them was actually the British government. And they weren't mad keen on the idea of Mary Robinson coming north either, because they needed to keep the unionists sweet. And they weren't mad about the idea of this maverick president coming north, because she came to upset the apple cart. She was a champion of human rights. She was a forthright champion of democracy, accountability, transparency, all those wonderful words. And she could upset the apple cart as well, and they needed to keep the unionists sweet. So sending the invitation was the easiest part of all of that. And once she'd said yes, and once we'd sent the invitation, we really found ourselves between a rock and a hard place. Because apart from ourselves and apart from Mary, nobody else was too keen on the idea. And anyway, it took actually about 18 months of constant correspondence back and forth between myself mostly and Mary Robinson's office and her people. And basically her office took on to do the negotiations with Haughey and his administration, and we had to sort out all the acronyms up north. And so, oh jeez, you kidding? And anyway, one of the things that happened was This is really important. I got a really bad flu and I was in bed for 48 hours and the sweat was lashing off me. And a knock came to the door and it was one of the women from the network and she said, "You've got to come with me now, you've really got to come with me now. There's a really important meeting, there's a meeting about the visit." And I said, "We didn't have a meeting scheduled." She says, "Yeah, but these 3 people have turned up from London and we really have to go to this meeting now." So we went to the meeting and we introduced ourselves. It was 5 women and we introduced ourselves. We all gave our names and there were 3 people on the other side of the table. 2 were literally men in grey suits and the other one was a woman in a black suit. And we introduced ourselves and kind of waited for them to introduce themselves and nothing happened. And one of the men said, "It's not necessary for you to know our names." At which point there was an aha moment. And the aha moment was dun 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 dun. And my aha moment was 3 seconds behind everybody else's because I was so full of snot and my head was so clouded. And I looked at the other women's faces and I thought, "Shit, MI5. And just at that moment, we knew we were really out of our depth. And basically, they had come to tell us that this visit was not a very good idea and that really the British establishment weren't too happy about it. And they started to lay down all these criteria and all these conditions for why this should happen. If we were going to do this, this is what we needed to do. We had to negotiate with all the paramilitaries. We had to get a guarantee of Mary Robinson's safety from all the paramilitaries, yada, 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 yada. And then at the very last thing they said, "And we want the names and the addresses of every woman that you're going to invite to meet the president." At which point, through the temperature, the fever, and the snot, I had my moment of serious non-compliance. And you know that moment when your head's blocked and your ears are blocked and your temperature's right and you don't even know if you said the thing because you can't hear your own voice. But I realised that I must have said it because I saw the faces around the table fall. And then I said it again, and this time I did say it, and I went, "No. No." And I said it again, "No." And that was it. And I could see the faces around the table, and no. No. If Mary Robinson hasn't asked to vet the women who are going to meet her, then the British government sure as hell isn't going to do it either. No. We're not playing this game. We are not playing it this way. And I remember getting up and saying, "Could somebody please take me home? I really need to go back to bed." And literally what I'm going to say to you from that is, yes, to cut a long story very short, she did come. And it was the first time that an Irish president had come north of the border in 30 years. She met Protestant women, she met loyalist women, she met Catholic women, she met nationalist women, she met Republican women, all the little boxes that they'd ever put us into. And that was the first of many visits that were to happen of Mary Robinson coming north. It led to another visit where she shook the hands of Larry Adams. And that led to her breaking the ice of the relationships on this island. And it led to what we later become to be known as the Good Friday Agreement. All of that built up to that over the next 5 years. But it started in that room with a bunch of non-compliant women and an aha moment that was pretty scary, but another aha moment that actually followed that and said, "No, we're not playing the game. You don't make the rules. We're changing the rules." Thanks very much.